Tēnā koutou te whānau o Auckland Unitarians. Tēnā koutou nā manahiri, no mai, haramai. Haramai ki tēnei whare karakia a te atua. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Welcome. Welcome to this space made sacred for over the last 115 years by Auckland Unitarians. You are light and kindness, possibility and beauty enfleshed, the latest manifestation of the universe, still in the making. Your uniqueness, talents, presence, and leadership enhance this gathering. Come, all of you who are burdened. Be comforted within these walls. Come, all of you discontent. Make a difference and work toward justice within and beyond these walls. Come, all of you in need of meaningful connections with others along the way. Enjoy the encounter, the shared stories. Grow together in laughter and tears. All of you are as gifts to each other and the world. Take your rightful place in life, here and now. As ANZAC Day approaches, I offer these opening words by Gary Kowalski, the peace not past understanding. We pray for the peace not past understanding, the peace of children laughing and students quietly studying, of young women dancing and men flirting beneath the stars. The peace not past understanding, where no gunfire disrupts the night, where girls can walk downtown and not be afraid, where boys can turn 18 and never register, where voices of hatred and intolerance find no hearing in the public square. The peace of decisions democratically determined, where opportunities for a decent life are equitably shared. Not the peace of gated communities, the false security of padlocked doors or walled borders, but the peace that reigns when people come together to solve their problems. In a world where national boundaries are rapidly falling away. We pray for peace in this world, here and now, not for deliverance in the sweet hereafter, but for the kind of promised land foretold by prophets of old, a land of milk and honey, real milk and real honey, no GMOs or bovine growth hormone, but certified organic and pesticide-free, where swords are beaten into plowshares and spears into pruning hooks, retooling the economy from military to civilian manufacture, where justice will roll down like waters, unpolluted by urban runoff, and each shall labor beneath his own vine and fig tree on a small family-owned farm, not as underpaid minions of corporate agribusiness, proclaiming liberty to the captives of the prison industrial complex, bringing the oil of gladness instead of dependence on Middle Eastern crude, and where a young child shall lead them, not a plutocracy of withered old men, but youth, unencumbered by ancient animosities, a rising generation in an emerging planetary culture. Good God, remind us of your vision for us, your promise of a peace not far off, but close at hand, not a mere dream, but a better future waiting to be made real, when people will build houses and live to inhabit them, plant trees and eat their fruit, and none shall hurt or destroy. If ever there were a time for a candle in the darkness, this would be it. Using a spark of hope, kindle the flame of love, ignite the light of peace, and feed the flame of justice. This coming Tuesday, New Zealand celebrates ANZAC Day for the 101st time since the Battle of Gallipoli, where 7,447 young Kiwis died or were wounded for king and country. 40 young men from our congregation were in their number. 6 or 15% did not return. ANZAC Day has grown in popularity in my time in New Zealand. Dawn parades will be well attended around the country. Tears will be shed at the reading of In Flanders Field and as the last post is sounded. But I will not be there. I am put off by the militaristic pomp and circumstance. I chafe when Jesus' words in John's Gospel, "Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends," are misused to glorify dying in a war. They did not make the supreme sacrifice. Those in power callously and carelessly sacrificed them. There are banners around town proclaiming, "We will remember them." I will, but not for what they did, but for what was done to them, their families, and to our country. In World War I, nearly 10% of New Zealand's population served, and nearly 20% of those died. Many, if not most of those who returned home bore lifelong physical and emotional scars. Yes, I will remember them. But I will also remember those 286 men who were imprisoned for refusing to serve and for speaking out against the war. One of them was Unitarian minister James Chappell, who at one time served this congregation. To me, they were the true heroes of the war to end all wars. They sacrificed their freedom and endured taunts of cowardice from family, friend, and neighbor for the sake of peace. I hope I would show such courage if ever I were in their shoes. Of course, World War I did not live up to the billing that it would end all wars. According to Wikipedia, a war is defined as when 1,000 or more have died in the previous calendar year. Right now, at this very moment, there are 4 wars being fought where over 10,000 have died in the last year, and 10 more where 1,000 to 999 have died. Then there are the 43 armed conflicts that have not yet achieved that inglorious, arbitrary number. While I choose not to be at a dawn parade, I will certainly not be ignoring ANZAC Day. It will be a time for me to imagine peace, a la John Lennon. Sometimes it seems the only option left to us is to imagine it. Being at war appears to be ingrained in the human condition. So, am I wasting my time? Is peace only a pipe dream? Respected mediator and negotiation scholar William Ury says in his book, Transforming Conflict at Home, at Work, and in the World, that it is a common misconception that humans are naturally violent and warlike. Archaeologists have found no evidence of war or organized violence during the vastly greater part of human and pre-human history. Evidence of war only occurs in the past 10,000 years. Prior to that, organized violence would not have been adaptive to the prehistoric environment. Humans existed for hundreds of thousands of years as gatherer-hunters. Groups were small and mobile. Population density was low and resources were relatively plentiful. Survival depended on the ability to cooperate and share labor, food, and resources. Under such conditions, war made very little sense. There would be little to gain. Loss of even a few members could devastate a group. Other groups could retaliate or at least stop sharing and cooperating with the aggressive group. Moving away was always feasible and a much lower cost option. Faced with the challenge of survival, everyone could benefit from cooperation, while everyone would usually lose from fighting. Anthropological studies suggest that early humans would have had as many conflicts as modern ones, but that they would have contained those conflicts and averted violence by using a combination of the third side, which I will explain further in a moment, and exit options. In strongly interdependent societies, social discipline is strong, and people rarely disregard the community will. Urey concludes humanity evolved in what might be called a co-culture, where conflict was handled most constructively through coexistence and cooperation. To say that humans are naturally aggressive is misleading. Humans and other primates certainly have the capacity for violent aggression, yet humans also show a capacity to control aggression. Modern human societies show extreme variations in the rates of violence, as great as 1,000-fold from the most peaceful to the most violent. Urey notes the level of variation alone suggests that far more than human nature is at play. Violence is simply one tactic among many that people may use to handle disputes. Violence is a capacity that humans exercise by choice, rather than an instinct that manifests itself uncontrollably. Why then did warfare arise in the last 10,000 years? Urey argues that war arose with an increase in population, the relative scarcity of resources, and a shift to sedentary agriculture-based societies. Urey notes the form of social organization changed from an open network to a relatively closed village. The agricultural revolution created the first human cities and a population explosion. Under these new conditions, war begins to make sense. The aggressor stood to gain possession of fixed resources, the value of which outweighed cooperation. Slavery became feasible. With the population boom, people were increasingly expendable. Moving away from the conflict was no longer an option. At the same time, traditional structures for managing conflict were weakened. This era also saw the invention of human organizations based on coercion and hierarchical power. Power over others becomes a vicious goal, pursued from greed and from the fear that if one does not dominate, then they will be oppressed. As Urey describes it, networks of negotiation turned into pyramids of power. Rulers are even more compelled by the logic of war, since their personal costs are low. Soldiers do the dying, and the potential gains are high. Urey argues that the conditions of human life are again changing, and changing in ways that make creating peace and ending war more possible. The basic resource of human society is shifting from land to knowledge. Land is a fixed resource, and so invites fixed pie thinking, emphasis on boundaries and competition. Knowledge is an expandable resource. It increases through being shared, and so invites cooperation and erodes boundaries. Because modern weapons are relatively cheap and massively destructive, violent conflict is changing from a win-lose proposition to an all-lose situation. In a nuclear exchange, no one would win. Conventional bombs and landmines are a little better. Knowledge also offers an alternative to coercion as a source of power. Correspondingly, hierarchical power structures, in some cases, are increasingly being leveled and replaced with decentralized networks. People are also increasingly globally interdependent. Increased interdependence leads to more conflicts with potentially widespread impacts and to greater vulnerability. However, growing vulnerability means greater motivation for the community to take action to prevent harmful conflict. The knowledge revolution creates both the motivation and the tools to resurrect the third side. Uri sees an increase in the amount and quality of negotiation happening in all areas of human life. Negotiations between citizens and democracies, between managers and decentralized business corporations, between spouses and egalitarian marriages. He predicts that the pyramids of power are collapsing into the time-honored networks of negotiation. Those who attended our first creative conflict workshop last Wednesday that know that peace is not the absence of conflict. Conflict cannot and should not be eliminated since it's necessary for creating change. Peace requires conflicts be channeled into constructive, cooperative processes. In Western or modern societies, conflicts are typically thought as having two sides, the opponents. As an anthropologist, Uri has studied two simple societies, the Semi and the Bushmen, which are well known for their peacefulness. He argues that those societies recognize that moderns have largely forgotten. Every conflict occurs within a community that constitutes the third side of any dispute. It's the community that's the third side. The Semi and the Bushmen both employ this third side purposefully and vigorously to contain and resolve conflicts before they escalate. Uri sees traces of the third side in actions in modern societies, in situations ranging from family conflicts to international disputes. Uri describes the third side as people from the community, using a certain kind of power, the power of peers, from a certain perspective of common ground, supporting a certain process of dialogue and nonviolence, and aiming for a certain product, a triple win. The presence of third parties usually has a moderating effect on conflicts. The third side perspective, the view from the broader community, can remind disputants of their shared interests. The third side strives for a solution that satisfies both the disputants and the wider community. The third side is made up of both insiders and outsiders. In the case of South Africa's conflict over apartheid, the government's institutions and peoples of other nations, such as New Zealand's protest of the Springbok tour, were the outsiders. Insiders included church and business groups, most notably Nelson Mandela and F.W. de Klerk, who together made a powerfully effective voice for the third side. Uri also suggests that there is an inner third side in most people, an innate resistance to violence, which, although it can obviously be weakened, can also be cultivated and strengthened. In short, the third side is all of us. By ignoring a conflict or taking sides, we all contribute to escalating it. And so preventing violent conflict is everyone's responsibility. Even when we are ourselves directly involved in a conflict, we have the option of adopting the third side approach. If we are going to imagine peace, we have to imagine ourselves as peacemakers. That requires first rejecting pessimistic beliefs about the inevitability of war or destructive conflicts. Second, we can each learn some problem solving and conflict resolution skills. Then we need to claim our niche in the third side. That requires discovering which peace-building role best suits us and incorporating it into our existing activities. The goals are grouped around 3 tasks. A teacher or bridge builder will seek to prevent destructive conflict. A mediator or healer will seek to resolve conflicts. A peacekeeper or witness seeks to contain escalating conflict. There is a role for everyone. As Unitarians committed to peacemaking, let's look to form alliances and work with other third-siders, such as the Quakers, to support third-side activities in the broader community and the world. Let's commit to developing, building, and supporting new third-side initiatives and institutions as part of our peace and social justice mission. Finally, let's recognize that we are creating a profound social movement towards peaceful human coexistence. Ever the optimist, Uri ends by saying, because the task of creating a genuine co-culture may take a generation or more, there is no better time for us to begin than now. To imagine it is only the beginning. For our meditation today, I'm going to offer something a little different. Music. It is a famous anti-war song by Eric Bogle, which many of you will have heard. For my closing words, in your life, may you know the holy meaning, the mystery that breaks into every moment. May you live at peace with your world and at peace with yourself. And may the love of truth guide you in your everyday.